Now to the latest development in an issue that's been plaguing the world of sports. Federal prosecutors have charged roughly 24 people, including many college basketball players, in an illegal gambling probe. The FBI says a point-shaving scheme began in the Chinese Basketball Association in 2022 and then moved on to the NCAA basketball, where at least 29 games are said to have been fixed. Players were allegedly offered as much as $30,000 to rig the games. Here's what prosecutors said in a press conference earlier today.
The scheme here was the defendants would identify a game in which a corrupted player had a team that was favored to lose, and then they would bribe said player to deliberately underperform so that his team would lose by more than they were favored to. They would bet for them to not cover the point spread.
Goodness gracious. Well, Danny Funt joins us now from Charlotte. He's the author of Everybody Loses, The Tumultuous Rise of Sports Gambling, which coincidentally just happens to be coming out next week. What timing, Mr. Funt? Good to see you. We've seen point-shaving scandals like this before. There was the Boston College one back in the 1970s. There have been other instances in the last year or so. But what makes this one different now, of course, that sports gambling is legal?
I would say, for one, just how brazen it is. This is allegedly a scheme that covered dozens of programs, affected at least 29 games, as you said. And just the amount of money at stake, they were bribing players allegedly 10 to 30 grand per game if they facilitated this point shaving. And some of it is kind of staggering if you read the indictment, including how immediate this was. You had players in the locker room after they had fixed the final score of the first half, which is what a lot of these bettors were gambling on, saying things like, wow, that was so easy. It was so easy to fix a game. So it's hard to wrap your heads around how big this is for the NCAA and for sports.
And for college kids who, of course, if they're good, frankly, have the opportunity to be making big money now. This is not only big money, it seems like fast money. Because as I read parts of the indictment, they were getting that money pretty quickly after these games, right?
That's right. And I did find that an interesting component of this. You know, nowadays, college athletes, some of them make millions of dollars a year through these NIL deals.
Yeah.
And you might think, okay, it would be hard to corrupt someone who's already making that much money. Why would they risk throwing it all away by gambling or colluding with gamblers? And the vulnerability that people have explained to me that creates, and this sort of demonstrates, is it creates kind of a wealth gap within college sports. Obviously, not everyone's making millions. Many aren't making anywhere close to that, of course. And these alleged fixers targeted players for whom a bribe of 10 grand up to 30 grand a game was meaningful money and would help even things up between them and people they're playing with or against, who are making much more through NIL. So it's a modern wrinkle to a age-old problem in college basketball.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny, and maybe your book gets into some of this, or maybe you've written about it before, but the idea that you're going to college with a guy who's good at a sport, or a woman, and they're making 6, potentially 7 figures for playing, and he's sitting next to you in like Econ 101, like how does that start to change the dynamic on campus? Of like, you know, traditionally college kids were all starving, right? They're all trying to figure out what they were going to do next. Now you've got these guys making huge sums of money, intermingling with all these other students who don't. You know, it just changes the dynamic of college overall, doesn't it?
It does, and it makes the threat of any sort of match fixing or trading on inside information, all of that so much greater just because you're rubbing shoulders with these players. Charlie Baker, the president of the NCAA, who's had a bit of a "I told you so" reaction to this news. He's been campaigning for quite a while to say states and even Congress need to rein in betting. When I spoke with him for my book, he pointed out that he hears stories of kind of a subtle form of coercion where a student will say to an athlete they're in class with or at the dining hall with or wherever, hey, I bet on you and you cost me money last game. Why don't you be sure not to score in the first half? Or why don't you give me an inside edge? That sort of stuff happens all the time now. And when these leagues or even when the NCAA assures us, hey, we can police this, we can sniff out suspicious betting activity, That sort of stuff, it doesn't take a genius to figure is impossible to police.
Yeah. Well, Danny, look, your book is well timed. I'm going to go pick up a copy because this continues to be a problem. Obviously, the leagues, the professional leagues say they think there may be an easier way to track this now that betting is legal. But again, the dynamic on campuses and what this kind of big money means for students, it is detrimental. So thank you for joining us. We'll have you back at some point to talk about this because it sounds like this issue isn't going away anytime soon. Good luck with the book.
Thank you, Ed.